Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Urvashi and I work as a professional trainer and I provide trainings in front-end development technologies, that is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js and Redux. Welcome to the 15th video of JavaScript of Let's Crack It with Urvashi series. This is the most awaited video of this series, that is asynchronous programming in JavaScript. I have seen a lot of students struggling with this concept. They don't understand the meaning of asynchronous. They don't understand callbacks, promises, and async and await keywords. So if you want to make JavaScript asynchronous, there are three ways: callbacks, promises, async, and await keyword. So we are going to see in detail about all of it. Like firstly, callback came, then we can implement set timeout, set interval using callbacks. And we can see the drawback of callback, that is callback hell. And then in 2015, promises was introduced as a ES6 concept. And in 2017, async and await keyword was introduced as a ES7 concept. So we are going to see all of it in detail, and I hope after watching this video, you will be able to understand this concept and will be able to answer in interviews as well. So now let's see what is asynchronous programming and all these three concepts in detail. Now let's get to the video.
Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to start with callbacks, promises, and axios in JavaScript. Again, these are very important topics. So the very first thing we have is callback. So callback is a function passed an argument to another function. That means there is going to be one existing function and we are going to pass that function as the argument to another function. We have seen this thing in when we did BOM, that is in timing events, that is set timeout and set interval. There we passed one callback function. So we majorly use this callback for the asynchronous programming. So this function or technique will allow a function to call another function, and a function can run after one function has finished. So functions are always executed in the sequence they are called, not in the way they are defined. So this callback can be used, for example, in set timeout, we are able to achieve asynchronous programming because there we pass two arguments. One is going to be the callback function and other is the millisecond value after which that function need to be executed. So this is how we can use callbacks. So whenever you have a function and another function is passed as an argument, that is going to be a callback function. Now let's see this technique through the code, how it works. And this is very important because all the array helper function in ES6 uses callback function. So this is a very important topic. Now let me just create some function. Let's say calculate. Now in this, I'm going to call this function from here. Let's say I'm passing 5 comma 5, and this is going to, let's say, do the sum of these variables. I will receive these values, let's say a comma b, and I will do the sum. This is a very normal function passing the arguments, receiving the parameters, and doing the sum. Now I'm going to create another function. Let's say display. I am going to say console of something. That means I'm going to use this callback function to display the sum of these values. So from here I can pass this callback. So I'm just going to say 5 comma display. So we don't have to use round braces, and we have seen this in timing events as well, set timeout, that whenever we pass a callback, we never use round brace. So from here, I'm passing this function as a callback here, and this will be received here as a parameter. So I'm just going to name it, let's say, my callback. Now, to call this function, we are going to use this name, not the display name. So I will just say my callback here. And let's say I will just pass some value from here. Now this some value will be passed to the display function because this is the display function that I have passed from here. Now this display function is received here. In the name I've given is callback, and I'm calling this function from here. That means I'm just changing the names, but reference is going to be same. So here my callback is going to call this display function, and it is going to again pass the arguments, and it is going to receive some value. Let's say sum, and I can console sum. So line of execution will be, first it will come to calculate 5, 5 and display. It will come to calculate, and A will receive 5, B will receive 5, and my callback will receive display. Then this line will be executed, sum of A and B, and I will just call this display from here, my callback, and I'm going to pass sum, that is going to A plus B, which is 10. Now this value will be received here, 10, and I'm just consoling the value of sum, which is 10. This is how I'm passing a callback function inside another function. This is what we call a callback, and there is no defined order. It's going should be in starting, middle, or end. It can be anywhere. I can just write this function here as well. Then the order of receiving the data will change here. My callback will come first, and then back will come later. That's the only difference. So this is how we use callbacks. Now let's see the output. I will run this. If I go to inspect, I can simply see 10 over here. That means my callback is working fine. Now we have already seen its applicability, like in set timeout, set interval, there, how to use it. Now, the very next topic we have is asynchronous. So, as we know, JavaScript is a single-threaded and a synchronous programming language. So, it is going to interpret each line and going to execute line by line. So, definitely, there will be a point where we want multiple things to be working or running at the same time. So, that is a point where we are going to use asynchronous programming. So, to make your JavaScript asynchronous, we are going to use this callback, set timeout, timing events. That parallelly, we will make sure multiple things should be running. We are going to use promises to achieve that. So functions running in parallel with another functions are called the asynchronous. That means multiple things are working. Multiple things means multiple actions or multiple tasks, and we know to fulfill any particular task, we can just create a function and call it. So to achieve this asynchronous, we already have set time or set interval, but we can also use promises. Now, promise is a very important topic which is introduced in ES6, but we are doing it here so that you will understand callbacks and then promises. But this is a concept introduced in ES6. Now, promise is a JavaScript object that links producing code and consuming code. Now, what will happen in this? There will be one code which is going to take time to execute, and there will be one code which is going to take time to consume the result. All your API calls, everything is going to happen through this promise object. We have this one middle concept in this Ajax calls to do that. So earlier we had like Ajax calls to do the for the API calls and all. So nowadays we use promise because in this it gives you the name promise came because it always gives you a promise that you will get something. That means even if it's not a correct result, it maybe it's a error. So you will always get something in return. So JavaScript promise has 3 states. This is also important question when it's come to interview. That how many states your promise return? It can have 3 states: pending, fulfilled, and rejected. So pending is a state when it's executing when result is undefined, when you have not came to the conclusion that it is fulfilled or rejected. Next comes that means it's in progress, the code is being executed or working. So fulfilled is a state when your code is executed, fulfilled, and your result is a value. And third is rejected, when your promise is rejected, that result is an error object. So there are 3 states in promises, and we have majorly 2 things, that is producing code and consuming code. That is, one is going to execute and one thing is going to wait for the result. Now let's see how we can create this promise. So here I'm going to say, let's say let my promise. So we are going to create promise object because these are objects only, is equal to new keyword, then promise. Just like function constructor, this is the way we use it. Let promise is equal to new promise. But there is one difference. This promise is a predefined one, that it is already created and we are just going to use it. So this is a promise constructor over here. And here it takes a callback function. Now this callback function takes 2 parameters now. Now don't get confused with the syntax. Instead of passing this display, I can directly pass the function like this. So if I'm directly passing function, this is the syntax. Here you don't have to mention the function name. Then I can simply write console.log. So there are 2 ways. Either create a function then pass it, or directly pass. Just like in closures, when we were returning a function in one example, I wrote directly return some function, and then in another example, I created two functions and then pass the function. So in promise, this is how we can create. This is a callback function and it takes two parameters. Now these all are predefined. There are two parameters which is going to be resolve and then rejected. So it takes two parameters. Now these two are for the methods only. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to create the producing code, which is a code which is going to be executed. Let's say var x is equal to 0. I have some condition. So if x, then I will just say resolve. That means okay. So this resolve is also a method again. Else I'll say rejected. And here I'll just say rejected. That means if I get an error, this will be executed. And if it's okay, that means this will be executed. So I'll just say if x is triple equal to 0. So I have to pass some condition. Now next thing comes how we consuming these code. So to consume this promise, so this is how we say consuming promise. We use then method. So to consume a promise, we write my promise, the promise object dot then. This is how we consume the promise. Now this is the one I created. Firstly, you need to create a promise object and then you can consume it. My promise dot then. Here it takes two things, two callbacks. First callback is for the result, for the when your state is fulfilled, and another callback for the rejection, that is when you're receiving an error. So here automatically you will get value. That means if this is executed, automatically you will get result here. If this is executed, you will automatically get result here. So you don't have to do anything here. This is how we consume it. So I'll just say value. So whatever value you have in result automatically gets here. So this is a method. So this method is whatever this method is having is going to be returned here. So let's say result of okay, that means you are passing this argument and that value will be received here as parameter. Here if you're sending this reject, here you will get this, let's say error, and here I can just say console.log of error. Again, this is a method, reject is a method. You're passing the argument and that value will be received here. Automatically result will go in the first and rejection will go in the second. That is something is going to happen on its own. We don't have to do anything in that. Now let's execute this. So ideally I should get okay because x is actually 0. So I will get okay. Now this is my consuming code and this is my producing code. And this is how we consume promises. Now next question comes where we use these promises. We use promises a lot, especially during the API calls. For example, Axios is an example. Axios is a modern promise-based HTTP client library. This means Axios is used to send HTTP requests and handle all the promises using JavaScript's promises. As I said, it's a promise-based. That means it is going to give us either error or result, which is going to be returned from the API. So Axios supports both Node.js and JavaScript in the browser. So Axios is my promise-based asynchronous HTTP calls. So it is a promise base used for asynchronous HTTP calls. That means whenever you do a API call, your code should not be dependent on that API call. That data will come and then it will do something. So it should be something like even if data is coming, your code should be able to do some other task at the same time. So Axios is one such example that we can use. So we use Axios for the API calls. So to use this Axios, firstly you need to include this here. So Axios, this is the link we need. So it's external third-party library. So Axios is a third-party library that we use. So for API calls, we can use this Axios over here. So this Axios is one applicability that we use. Now here in Axios, this part is already created. Promise is already created because it's a promise-based object. The only thing we have to see is how we are going to consume it. Now, to consume this, I can just create a function. Let's say on click of a button, I want to get the API data from the API. It's a get data. So I will just say on click is equal to get data. So I will create a method here. So here I will write axios dot get dot then and dot catch. Definitely the one who created this axios, that person have named, like changed few things here and there, like the way I'm consuming it here, this is a typical one. If I'm creating one, this is how I'm consuming. So in this, in dot then, this is a separate, you will get callback in then and callback in catch, but in catch you will get a error, and in then separately I will get the response. So from then and catch, one thing is going to be executed. This is like if you're creating your own promise and then consuming it, this is the typical way, but this is the applicability. So it's axios, this is the syntax. Here we pass some API. So dot then is the method. So here we pass the callback function. In this callback, automatically you get results. So whatever this API returns, just like this function, whatever this returns, you get the value here, and whatever this is returning, you get the value here. So automatically what this API is returning, you get in resolve in this res. If it's rejected, you will automatically get the error. So here I'm just going to say function error curly brace. So here, if you want to see the data, what data is coming, I can just write response, and here I can just write console.log of error. This is what we have in this axios. This is one example of this promise over here. So here just insert some API. API we can get online, any free API of the existing one. You just have to insert some API. Get means getting the data. This is what HTTP call we are doing. Get. That means getting the data from the API. Now in this is what we are achieving here. We are achieving asynchronous programming here. Now we have another way of achieving asynchronous programming. Right now, whatever we are using is this Axios, which is a promise based, which is a predefined one. It's a third party library I'm using basically, which is a predefined one. And here I'm creating my own promise and consuming it. So now there are two keywords, that is async and await, that leads to the asynchronous programming. So this asynchronous, let's say if you want to make sure that you want to make your existing function asynchronous, we can use this. At that time I can use this. So for example, I have a function division, and it is just going to say console.log of division. Now if you want to make this asynchronous, so I can just write async. So whenever we use this async, that means this function returns some promise. So let me just say return division, because it's going to return something, so I have to make it return. So this is how we can consume division dot then, and now it will take two parameters, which is going to be callback functions. So if it's executed fine, I will get the value, that is division. So I will get a value and I can just console it. And here I can just write console.log of, I will get error here, let's say, so I'm just going to console that. Now let's execute this. So here I'm getting the division, 10, okay, and then division. Now let's say this is just a way I'm making my function asynchronous. Now next another example is when you want to wait for the promise to return as well. So I will just take another example. Let's say async function display data, let's say. So here I will say var y is equal to, let's say, get data. So this is like a normal way. I'm just going to console y, and outside I'll just say console.log of, let's say, first. Then I'm going to call this method, let's say display data. and I'm going to say console.log of second. So this is nothing but asynchronous, which is going to return something. This function is called, and you can use this function like this, like directly when you want to pick the proper usage, because this function is going to return promise. You want to check what you will get if it executes fine, and if you want to see the error. Right now, I just want to call this method. Now, if I refresh, you will see I will get second first get data and second. And if you observe one thing, one okay and division are coming after this that means they are going for asynchronous. This is a, like you can see it now, that they are executing at their pace. They are not dependent on anything, and they're not even stopping the execution of some other thing. That means this is executed, then this part is executed actually. So you're getting OK and division later. Now I'm getting first get data and second in order, because this is not a complete asynchronous as of now. It is dependent that first will be executed, this will be executed, and this. So what we can do, we can include a await. That means await can be included only in async block, and this await is going to wait for the data to come, that is get data. So it is going to wait here. Now this is also not dependent on anything. Now get data is coming in the very end. So if I don't use this wait, I was getting this get data like this, first get data and then second. But the moment I add this, I'm getting first, second, and then in the end I'm getting get data. So all these are, especially these three, are asynchronous now. These three are completely asynchronous. They are not dependent on anything. So parallelly multiple things are going on. So this is how we can use callbacks, promises, and especially for asynchronous programming, I'm using promises, async await. These were introduced in ES7, but I'm discussing here because these are the topics in asynchronous. And definitely promises is like initiation when we talk about asynchronous and all. Definitely callback also help us in achieve asynchronous, because set time out there we use these callbacks because it is helping us to delay the process of some execution, and nothing is dependent now. Through the output we have seen, this is executing it at its own pace, this is executing at its own pace, this one as well, and here as well. So this is what we have in callback, promises, and the Axios, which is, again, you can read more about this online. We have get post methods here. So you can read more about Axios for the API part. So for API part, we use this for API calls. So this is what we have in callbacks, promises, and the Axios, and async and await, and asynchronous programming. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching my videos. If you like this video on asynchronous programming, and I hope you are able to clear the concepts after watching this video, do share it with your friends, family, working professionals, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my channel. And definitely you all went through the video, and now you want to practice. So for that, you all can check out my interview preparation material. I've added a lot of questions, practice questions, and quiz, and the interview questions related to this topic. So you can check out my interview preparation material. I've added the description below, so do check that out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my channel. See you guys in the next video. Thank you.